what? You guys have been asking every time I have posted or slightly even mentioned Scarlett, and us working on some of her behavioral, I don't even want to call it issues, but some of her behavioral tendencies. Is that a good word for it?
Yeah, just some challenging things that she's got going on.
Yeah. Every time I've even slightly mentioned it, I've been slammed with DMs for days. So I thought I would bring in Miss Rebecca, who I've mentioned before, and kind of talk a little bit about this, because when I posted the other day, we got well over 200 questions, I think, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a common issue in every... I just burped, so we're going to edit that out. This is obviously, I think every family has one child that stretches them more than their others. And I think it's funny because most people assume that's Wells. Mm-hmm. And Wells, thus far, has not been that child for us. It has Scarlett, while I talk about it as if it's such a challenge and difficulty, because there are a lot of tears at times, or there have been, not so much anymore. We've come a long way. But it's also something I'm incredibly grateful for, and something that I have thanked the Lord for, because she has taught me and has given me, and Scott, I think, more growth. She's added more growth to our family than I could have imagined, and it's been a real blessing that she's taught us these things early on in our parenthood. So it's a good thing, but it can be very difficult, and none of us are alone, and it should not be taboo to talk about this. Mm-hmm. I was a little hesitant at first because Scott likes to keep these kind of things more private for her sake, but you know what I figured? I decided, you know what, if someday she asks me why I talked about this, if she sees any of this, I'll say, because you're kind of a pain in the butt for a couple years. My parents tell me that all the time. It's okay.
I would say it's because she's the next leader of the world.
There we go. And I'll say, look at what you've accomplished, because mommy didn't know exactly what she was doing and called for somebody who did know how to give me those tools. Yeah. We were able to grow as a family. So I don't see this as negative at all.
No.
I think it's a great thing.
Well, and I think just this journey that you've had with Scarlett, it has really brought to light some of the things that you did as a child, and some of the personality traits between you and Scott. Yeah. And it's been kind of fun to watch where all of that goes, because then we can kind of tease things out and say, okay, this is really more who she is versus
which is me.
The challenge. Yeah.
Which is me. She's my mini. So anyways, yeah, there's been a lot of rude awakenings through this journey too.
Not rude. Fun. They've been fun for my aspect.
They've been very entertaining. So I brought in Miss Rebecca. I've been trying to nail her down for a while. She's a very busy woman, and she's kind of like a family coach. What would you say to describe yourself?
Yeah, so I hold a master's degree in child and adolescent psychology, and I work specifically with families to help coach them on how to help their children with challenging behaviors, but also change the lens in which they're looking at their child, realizing that the child is not choosing to have these behaviors, right? That the child has something that may be missing in their development, and so we go in and we look at that and try and figure out what it is and help the parents be able to overcome those challenges.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great way to put it. And I think you're exactly right when you say, well, at least I remember when we decided to start working with you. This is actually the second person we worked with. We did work with a therapist when she was 2, just because I couldn't wrap my head around how to parent her. She was like 2 and literally running me and the whole house. Everything kind of revolved around her, and I was like, I don't know what to do. So that first experience, we didn't mesh as well with the woman who we had working with her. She was great, but it just wasn't as good of a match. And we also realized, I think she might have been 3 actually. But anyways, we waited a few years and decided to give it a go again. And I like to look at it this way. I had a friend tell me that we are all born with tool belts. And, your parents put tools into your tool belts. And then, church leaders, teachers, mentors, everyone as you grow up puts tools into your tool belts to help you become a successful adult. And I realized through parenting that there was just a few tools that my belt was lacking, and that I needed to be a good and a successful parent, and the kind of parent that my kids deserved. And it wasn't so much, you have to go into it realizing you're not going to fix them and the issues that they are bringing to your family or to your home. but you're going to fix how you respond to them. Don't turn this off because I said that. Because I think we all want a quick fix.
We do, and we got to understand that a lot of the things that our kids are challenged with, again, it goes back to they don't have the skill to be able to meet the need.
Yep.
There's certain conditions, environments, various factors as to why they can't do it.
Personality types.
Yeah.
There's no like environmental thing for Scarlett or condition. It's just kind of who she is.
That strength and personality that doesn't fit the mold.
Right. Exactly.
She doesn't fit
Nope.
the way in which we want her. You know, she is that square peg being shoved into a round hole all the time.
We've had that at school. Yeah. We've had a few.
Yeah, and so we are always constantly kind of changing our expectations as to what that looks like for her. And so it is important that we do really look at the full child and understand who that child is before we even look to changing things.
Right.
Because sometimes it's not a matter of change. Sometimes it's a matter of shifting our expectations.
I think a lot of the time it is. Or shifting how we respond to. Yeah,
and when that mental maturity starts to come in, so as you're talking about the tools, we give them more and more tools as we're working with them, right? And as we're working with parents, those parents get more and more tools as to what they can do, how they can react,
what we're all
they should be modeling.
Tools.
Yeah.
She's basically a walking toolbox.
No!
I'm just kidding.
I'm flipping my lid open all the time and sharing.
Yeah.
No. Those tools are so great because then at some point, her mental maturity will kick in with these. And that developmental gap will get a little less for her. And so then she can run with the tools because she already has them. Right? Yep. She's not searching around in the dark trying to figure out what to do next. She's already got that foundation built so that those neural pathways can do their thing and work for her rather than against her.
Oh yeah, like a lot of the things that she has struggled with, impulsive, impatience, meltdowns, and social settings specifically, are things that I struggled with for a long, long time, like into my college years, and I, like her, had no diagnosis. There's nothing, what is it called, atypical?
Yeah.
There was nothing atypical about me, just like there's nothing atypical about her, per se, but these habits and these kind of characteristics, I didn't have the tools for until, honestly, a lot of them I've gained in the last year, or just in my adulthood, way later. And I don't want her to have to wait years and years to figure some of these things out. I want her to have those tools now, or into her childhood and her young adult years sooner than I did. I want her to have them sooner than I did.
Well, I think she has to in a lot of ways. The way that our culture runs now, she has to have these tools accessible to her because you can't keep up.
No,
the amount of technology
totally
and everything else.
Right?
Yeah, it is totally different. And she doesn't have the option, unfortunately, like we did, to take the time to kind of figure it out.
No,
she
doesn't. So we're going to dive right in. First of all, a lot of you wanted to know I think a lot of you were wondering why. I had a lot of people ask if Scarlett has a specific diagnosis, which I've already addressed. She does not. And a lot of you asked what made us do this. Like, when do you know that your child needs some behavioral assistance? And maybe a coach like Rebecca, or when you need assistance in helping your child.
Yeah. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. You have to really think in terms of, how is this affecting the family? Yeah. How is this affecting our values? How is this affecting our daily life? All of those factors. And if you as a parent are feeling constantly stressed by where your child is at, then I would seek someone to come in and even just do some basic coaching sessions with you, do some parent phone calls with you, and really tease out if there's something more pervasive there. If there's something more pervasive, that person then will refer you to that next step, whether it's a developmental pediatrician, it's a psychologist, a board-certified behavior analyst, to do that deeper work. But if it's something more like along the lines of Scarlett,
something not so abnormal,
even if you are dealing with a diagnosis where there's ADHD present, sensory processing disorder, you don't necessarily have to have someone that is at that level, like a license level. You can have someone that is like me, that's a certified professional coach, that has the education behind them and the experience to do that work. But that's where I would really look, is how is this affecting daily life for you and for the child? Is the child internalizing that they're bad and that they're always in trouble? Are they coming home from school and they've always been, whether it's a clip down system or a sticker chart or something, they're not getting what the other students are getting, and they're telling you about this and how awful this is for them? Then I would seek some additional help to build their confidence and give them those tools that they need in their toolbox.
Yeah. So what if it's like a smaller kid, a smaller child, and they just have like high intense emotional behaviors? Once again, you're saying if it's something that stresses the family out or maybe affects you and how you're parenting, or if you're getting to the level where you start realizing, for me, this is how it was, that I was reinforcing negative behavior by kind of feeling like you're just being naughty, to where it's she was processing it as, oh, okay, well, and that was what was happening at school for her. She was clipping down a few times a week. Whereas other kids I found out didn't clip down the whole year. Yeah. But I think she just decided, well, that's what I do. That's what they expect of me. Why try? Anyways, for younger kids, that could be just negative behavior that's repeated daily issues, constant meltdowns. I don't think you need to go looking for a diagnosis to get some minor help or to gain some of those tools.
I think what happens is we as parents just feel so much shame and guilt that we can't figure out what is difficult for our child.
Right.
And we feel like, even though we are the experts of about our children, not over our children, but about our children, we forget that sometimes there's things that we just don't have a knowledge base of, right? And so we think that if we come to people like me, that means that person is going to be pushing for some sort of diagnosis. And that's not necessarily the case. If there's large red flags in their development, then that person may recommend for you to go see somebody. But generally, that person will look at, just kind of the overall goals of what you want to do with your family and how that child can have these positive interactions in your family, and then help build that, so that the family unit can continue meeting the values that they have set in place, and the child can continue to feel confident and grow into who they really are. And
I would say that was a big thing for Scarlett. I felt like every family outing, gathering, event, vacation, interruption to schedule resulted in bad behavior or negative behavior, and it ruined it for our whole family. Like, everything just felt stressful. It just felt stressful having to cater to her tiptoe around her every little emotion. So I think if it's something like that, where you're feeling like your whole family is kind of being held back from enjoying life together because of one child, it's probably time to figure out how you can help that child.
Yeah, and a lot of families describe it as walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I'm always walking on eggshells.
Right.
From the time my child wakes up to the time that they go to bed, and I'm lucky if they do go to bed,
Right.
And so when you are feeling that, you are feeling like a failure as a parent. Yep. And you're not a failure, but you can't not feel that way. And that's when you do need to find someone to help.
Right, and I started to take it really personally. And it got to the point where I was vocalizing that, like, oh, I'm such a bad mom, or oh, and I was putting so much pressure on. I think when we started, she was 6.
Yeah.
She's almost 7. Yeah. Maybe she was even still 5. I mean,
she may have been 5.
She may have been.
Oh my gosh, it's been a year and a half almost.
Okay, so she was 5, and I'm vocalizing, and I don't believe any child is naughty. I think that they can have naughty behavior, but I think I was starting to I don't think I was like necessarily affecting her self-esteem, but I was worried I was on that path because I was starting, she she always knew she was causing these explosions. And anyways, it got to the point where it was affecting everyone. Then Scott would be stressed out because I was stressed out, and the boys were they repeat her. And anyways, it just...
Well, and it affects your parenting, and it affects your marriage, right? Because then mom tries to parent one way, dad tries to parent the other way, and so it causes it
causes friction. It just does, because it's a big interruption to life every day.
And then the child starts to feel like they're the reason why that friction is being caused, and they can pick up on it so quick.
They kind of are.
Yeah.
But
it's not their fault.
It's not their fault.
It's not their fault, but they can't. I mean, kids in general in their development are self-centered, right?
Yeah.
And so they can't not see past that. They don't see past the end of their nose. They see that it is just because of me that mom and dad are now fighting.
And I shouldn't say they are, because really it's my choice how I let it affect me.
Sure.
Right. It might have been what pushed me in that direction, but it's my choice in how I let it affect me. Okay, so how to respond to meltdowns. Let's get into the nitty-gritty, because I think this is what people really want to know. How do you respond to meltdowns?
So there's a couple things that we do, and Oakley can attest to this one. One of the things I like to look at is meltdowns in various ways. So when a child is having a meltdown, I like to see the reason why that meltdown's happening, and looking for predictability, right? Because behavior in general tends to be pretty predictable. So are there certain conditions, are there certain environments, are there certain people that's triggering it?
Right.
Those sort of things. And if we're looking in that way, we're thinking in terms of de-escalating and diffusing the meltdown. So that's your main goal. One, is everybody safe during this? If everybody's not safe, if things are being thrown, or the child is throwing themselves around, which can happen, right? Kids can get pretty intense. Then we've got to de-escalate first. That's number one priority, which means that we go in and make sure that that child or that environment is safe for that child. So if it's something where a child is throwing things, as much as possible, we try to clear the environment and allow the child to naturally come down. If it's something where that child is potentially hurting themselves. I've had children before where they get so intense and their anxiety kicks in that they actually start to self-harm.
Oh, well.
Then it's a matter of stopping that behavior from happening. And sometimes it is where we have to do what's called a response block, where we're putting our hand up or our arm up to stop that child from biting themselves or hitting themselves or throwing their head into the corner of something.
It's physical for both of you.
Yes, it can be. Now, from a parent perspective, that's something that is very, very scary, right? To see your child get to that level of anxiety and break down to the point where they are trying to self-harm. And so you do want to make sure that if that does happen, your environment is as clear as possible. So you try and push tables away, breakables get pushed away, and allow that child to work it out.
Okay, so for instance, if you have a kid who, you were talking about predictability, at mealtime, there tends to always be some sort of a meltdown that, potentially gets physical, or what if what if you're at the store, what if it's not something that you can predict, and they start to just flail and melt down, and you can't clear the environment, or you can't, what do you do then?
So you have a couple choices. You as the parent can choose to pick your child up if it's safe to pick your child up and move them out. Otherwise, you do have to kind of create a little bit of a barrier for them where you stand around them and try to protect them so that...
Like in a corner if you're out somewhere or something.
So that, and I imagine this, I actually had this happen the other day. I was in a store and this little boy started to melt down because he wanted the lollipop that was right by the cash register. Thank you, stores, for doing that to us parents.
Yeah,
that is like the worst thing ever. But he's melting down. Mom's in the middle of that aisle where she can't, the cash register's here, the other cash register's there. She can't go anywhere.
No.
Right? But this child
is... He's bringing her stuff up, so...
Yeah, and he's like trying to tip her basket over, right? And so I actually approached him and just started to physically breathe out loud. And it stopped it for a minute. So I went... Just nice, big breaths. This is a child that doesn't know me, right? But mom was obviously in a place where she could not do anything more. And she looked at me and smiled, and I started to breathe, and then that little boy just stopped for that moment, breathed for a second, and then he was able to be moved away from the danger, right? And so that redirection is a big component of this. If you can get the child's attention towards something else for that moment and then move them to a safe place, that's ideal. I don't like going in and swooping a child up and picking them up and moving them unless there's absolutely a safety issue there, right? Because I think it's very scary when a child is that worked up. They're not quite sure what's happening, and to have someone grab them, even if it's a mom or a dad, someone that they love, it's a very scary thing for them.
Right. That actually happened to our friend the other day who has Down syndrome. His behavior is usually very mellow, and somebody, an aide picked him up, and he just panicked and he started biting, and he's never done that. So I just, and you know, this is a child with special needs, obviously, but I think even a typical child, that feeling of that, feeling that momentum of that physical action can be intense and scary.
Well, and kids go into a blind rage really quick, right? They don't really know what's happening when they are in that place that they start to get physical with things. Like this little boy trying to push the cart over, he was not there, right? He wasn't really with what was actually happening. And so if you were to go in and just grab him in that moment, can you imagine what he would feel? It would really shock him.
Yeah, well,
So if you can de-escalate through redirection at first, then get them to a safe place, and then work through it at that point, that's ideal. Especially if you have a lot of eyes on you.
Okay, so how do you work through it then? Once you do get them to calm down. By the way, Scarlett, some of the things that Rebecca has done with her has been blow out your birthday candles. So when she's really intense, and the only way for this to actually work in the moment is if you've practiced it, modeled it, a lot
proactively.
Before. So when she's not melting down, when we're having a great day, when we're doing something fun, just say, "Hey, show me what you do. How you blow your big bubble, or how you blow out your birthday candles, whichever one we're doing." And we kind of practice it. Then in the moment, I say, "Okay, blow out your candles." When she's starting to, she'll blow out all 10 of them, and she does it really fiercely. And if she's still not calm, I have her do it again, and it just kind of does something in the brain that shifts whatever's going on right there that she's so upset about, and redirects her to a calmer place. Yeah. So a lot of it was blowing the bubble, and she'd envision it getting bigger and bigger. And I will say sometimes these things only work for a little bit, and then you have to move on to a different.
Yeah, they satiate. They get bored of them really quick, and so their brain needs something new. And it all depends on the developmental age of the child.
Right.
So if you have a toddler, blowing out your birthday candles isn't going to work, right? Because those mindfulness techniques don't really stick to the brain until they're around age 4. And so with a toddler, a lot of it is that deep breathing, giving them a calming presence.
Watching you do it, and then they kind of start to feel it,
Yeah, and they'll start to do it, and they quite enjoy it, because you'll see them work up. Have you ever seen those toddlers that work up and they're bright red in the face? They haven't breathed at all. There's no breath there. And so when you start to breathe, they usually will.
Okay, I know some of these things seem really simple and silly and like, oh yeah, that works, but you think about it, stop and think, do I ever try that? Do I do it? Because I would kind of like, okay, yeah, we'll try blowing out her birthday candles. You should see this girl when she's in a fit of rage. That's not going to work. But it does work. It really does. If you've modeled it and practiced it, which is the hardest part, is that homework. So anytime I think about it, or you could put little notes in your car, wherever, whenever you think about it, look at it, kind of remind you to practice these little exercises with them. And then in those moments, you would be surprised at how much these tiny little things shift their brains and actually do work.
Yeah, I mean, what you're doing is you're building neural pathways for these things to work. So what happens is you have in your brain structure, when a child perceives something as a fearful event, or it's something that they need to run for, that fight or flight or freeze response, your amygdala speaks to your hippocampus in your brain, and then your hippocampus goes in and it shuts down what's called your prefrontal cortex. So that area of your brain that allows you to organize, prioritize, that working memory piece. So that area of the brain where the child is able to reason through things totally shuts down on them. So you have to have something that you have built in that they can just automatically rely off of. And that's where like those mindfulness techniques that we've done with Scarlett came into effect by doing them proactively, practicing them multiple times a day. her brain created a structure to say, this is where I can go when I'm having these responses. So when my hippocampus says fight, flight, or freeze, I know what to do. Right? I can blow out my birthday candles, and it just shifts that brain to be thinking in a different way until that prefrontal cortex
like a distraction.
Can come in.
Yeah. And sometimes you might think, well, you don't know my kid in the moment when they're melting down, like getting them to do something like that seems impossible. But you just, one of the biggest things that has helped with Scarlett is less words, clear, direct. Nope, time to do your meditation jar. Because that's another one, is this jar that you flip upside down, and Rebecca made it with her. It's flat on both sides, and so it's with one of those Boz water bottles.
Yeah,
anyways,
they're great.
She colored it pink. They put different chunks, different size sparkles, so she could concentrate on different things. And she has to be laying kind of on her belly and watching it, and it just kind of diffuses her and calms her. And when she's really worked up, she'll, I don't want to blow her, I don't want, nope, birthday candles. And it's like, it's not, Scarlett, you are losing it. You know what? You know we've practiced this. You go get your birthday. It's nope, birthday candles. Yep. And that clear, my mind was blown that worked. Like that simple, taking out 90% of the words, that clear direction, straight to the point. Nope. Give them a second to process the nope. Go blow out your birthday candles.
You give them that instruction.
Meditation jar, and show them that chart real quick, and then we'll move on.
So this is actually, we're talking in kind of a reactive sense, but this is called the discrete trial, and this is a way of teaching. And so Oakley practiced this over and over and over again with Scarlett before she used it reactively. And so what you look at is you have your SD, your discriminative stimuli. That is your instruction.
So this would be more so if I say, Scarlett, go put your shoes away or something. But you could do it in a meltdown. Go get your meditation
After you've
jar.
practiced it, you've become proficient with it. As long as you know, and we're just giving you a basic outline, right? There's a lot of details actually as to how to truly run this. Yeah. But for our situation, this worked out really well. So after you've given your instruction, Scarlett gives some sort of a response, and then you're giving some sort of a consequence. And it's important that we point out that the consequence is not a punishment. It is a simple nope, and then you're giving her about 3 to 5 seconds to process that nope, and we're going back to the instruction.
So it's not really a consequence at all.
Well, I mean, you're making a clear definition that you have said something, and she responded a particular way, and so therefore it is not what you had asked her to do. Okay. So it is, that consequence is no. But it's not a punishment like you're going to time out or anything like that. Right? Because you do want to loop back to what your instruction was so that you can get her to move forward.
Right. And a lot of these little things, these little, practices and exercises, you have to remember they're not going to solve that issue in that moment the first 2 times. It's really building good habits. And it's changing, you have to remember the bigger picture because sometimes these things don't work or they're hard or they take more than, 2 or 3 tries. But when you keep doing them, and it really actually doesn't take that long, it really does start to be effective pretty quickly, and you keep doing them, it changes everything. Yeah. It's huge. And when you fall out of those, when you're stressed or things are going on in adult life and you fall out of those habits, you're back at square one and you know to go back to this and it works again because I've had to reset myself and we've had to reset some of these things a couple times.
I think a lot of it is us learning when is it teachable and when is it not, right? And if we haven't laid that groundwork where you were practicing this over and over and over with her for various instructions, then when she is in a meltdown, she's not going to hear you, right? No. Unless she is familiar with this type of system.
Practice modeling. Yeah.
And that's a great point as well, is when we are responding to our highly emotional children, we need to respond calmly. I think a lot of the times when they are melting down in the middle of the grocery store,
guilty,
right? We feel the pressure. We feel every eye in that store on us. We have the cute old woman coming up with a lollipop and trying to, have our child stop. We have the clerk trying to hand us stickers.
Or we have judgment eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really one thing she's taught me is to not give a flying flip, because you can't, or it'll destroy you.
No.
And honestly, nobody knows and loves your child the way you do, and their thoughts in that moment don't matter. Even if it's a neighbor or somebody you know and you are going to run into them, I always think, you know what though, in 10 years when she's like conquering the world, because I really think it will be, like when she's 16
She's our next president,
yeah.
You guys, so she'll be like the youngest president
They'll be
ever.
eating their words. They'll be eating their words. It won't, we don't, and who cares if we're not? Who cares if they don't know wonderful, well-behaved, 17-year-old Scarlett? And honestly, everyone loves her now. But I'm just saying, those judgments, they don't matter.
Well, and most likely you will never run into those people again.
Okay, so the camera just died and we had to charge for a minute. So we don't remember exactly where we left off. But basically, let's hit the bullets for how to respond to a child who's melting down.
So number 1, remain calm. Take a breath for yourself. Think of your own self-care in this. Number 2, make sure they're safe. And if safety means scooting them out of that place and getting them somewhere where they can be safe, then do that. Or if it means clear the environment, do that. And then look to de-escalate in the way in which is age appropriate for your child. So that might be breathing techniques, that might be mindfulness, that might be just using those short responses, nope, and then moving them on, redirecting them to something else. If it needs more than that, you do need to call someone that is a professional to help you figure out an actual de-escalation plan that would be appropriate for your child and their specific needs.
Probably Google the meditation jar. That was something that worked for Scarlett.
Yeah, so that's based off a book called Moody Cow, and you can get it on Amazon. And she loved that book. She thought that was so funny because his horns change more and more red the more angry he gets. And then they go smaller and smaller as he's doing his mood jar.
Cute.
So.
Okay, so one thing that has been the hardest for me, but that you hit on in there, was stay calm, remain calm. That is the one that I struggled with the most. I have come so far. I'm really proud of myself because I have seen it so many times. I know the difference between when I have stayed calm or when I've joined in with her on the meltdown. And I had somebody tell me, you're a thermostat. When her heat goes up or down, you stay the same temperature. Yeah. And that's been a good visual for me. So I try to stay at the same temperature in those moments. And sometimes that means I walk into the garage and walk away.
Yeah.
Or say, Mommy, I'll be right back. Anyways, staying calm is huge. And so for me, the best with the meltdowns are staying calm and clear, minimal words, clear directions has been my 2 favorites of those. Okay, we're going to move on to how to... you just did that one. How to respond to emotional states, empathetic listening. How to respond when... Like Scarlett came home one time, I'm going to tell a quick story. She was moody all day after school. And this wasn't incredibly uncommon. She doesn't sleep very well. So I assumed it was something like that she just kept causing little problems with me and with the boys and just kind of, grumpy.
Picking on her.
Yes.
She's going to pick at everybody.
Yes, she was picking. And Scott, who tends to get... he's a little bit better at this than me. He was laying with her that night and she just melted down and told him that somebody at school had taken a friendship bracelet back because she wanted to give it to somebody else. And that really affected her. And anyways, throughout the day, during her other little meltdowns, I could have been more of an empathetic listener and maybe I would have figured that out sooner or gotten to the root of the problem. What do you advise for empathetic listening or
so
when it's bad, when it's negative behavior?
Yeah. So so empathetic listening is interesting because it allows for you to respond to the child in a calm manner, which also then doesn't escalate the behavior, right? Because if we're modeling calm, the child will eventually get back to that calm state. But if we're escalating, they're going to escalate and match our level and then go beyond us. So I always look
So again, staying calm.
Yeah.
In every situation.
Which is really hard to do.
It is. Oh my heavens, for me it is.
I always look to reflect back on what they're saying to me. Oh, you're saying to me, I hate that so-and-so did this to me today.
Yeah.
that must have made you feel bad, or
Yeah.
that must have made you feel angry, or that must have made you feel, and labeling some sort of emotion. And a lot of times they'll come back and say, I didn't feel bad, right? And then that's where we get the clarifying statements out of that. And we say to them, oh, you didn't feel bad. How did you feel? So it opens the door for them to start to explain what their emotions were in that moment, or they may even go deeper and start telling you more of what happened within that situation. So you make that reflective statement.
Okay.
This is what I hear you saying, and that made you feel
this way. It
this
gives them
way.
a chance to
It opens that door.
clarify or to say yeah and feel validated.
Yeah. Yep. And then they feel seen, safe, and secure. I always talk in those 3 S's: seen, safe, and secure. If they're feeling that they're being heard, right, that is what makes them feel seen. If they feel like they can open to you, that makes them feel safe, and then they feel secure within that relationship, you're going to get a lot more information out of them.
I have seen this. I have seen this be true, especially recently with Scarlett, as she's gotten a little older, and I've kind of in situations where it might be harder for her to open up about things that she might feel more embarrassed because she's a little older. But when I do this, and when I say, so what I'm hearing is, Chloe said this and it made you feel this way, and then she can stop, and she's opening up a lot more, which as they get a little older and they get into these more serious, complicated feelings, or things happen at school, or they see things or whatever, we want them to feel safe and secure, and to feel like they can come to us. I think it's a huge tool.
It also takes that kind of sting of, I'm going to be in trouble for saying this to you, out of it, because you do start with that reflective statement, right? And when you start with that reflective statement, it's not this question of, am I going to get in trouble, right? I'm just hearing that mom's hearing me or dad's hearing me. And then that opens the door to being able to ask what they were feeling, right? Now, if you have a child that maybe doesn't know how they were feeling, then you can start to dig a little deeper by reflecting on yourself, right? Like, oh, in that situation, I would have felt like this. I would have felt embarrassed that my pants got mud on them, something like that. And then they can connect with you and decide if that's how they were feeling as well.
Yeah.
So
one way that this has really helped Scarlett has been in social settings. Social settings has been a huge place where we have struggled since she was very young, partially because her analytical and the analytical side of her brain is kind of mature. She seems a lot older than a lot of her kids. Her understanding and analytical state has always seemed maybe a year or two.
She's always thinking 5 steps ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is uncommon for most kids her age. Like, I remember for a while she'd have play dates and I'd be like, is that kid a little off? And then started to realize, no, she's just sharp as a tack, always has been. This is no credit. I'm not saying I have this brilliant child, but she's always been a couple steps ahead. But her emotional level has always been her age.
Yeah.
So there's been this gap that's been really hard, and it's slowly starting to close, and they're catching up with each other, and that's been easier. But social settings have been difficult. I asked Rebecca during the summer, we had a lot of friends and family visit and constant social settings. I almost couldn't avoid it. So I said, okay, every time there's a fight, every time there's an I hate you, harsh words, even though we've talked about it, we've practiced, what do I do when it happens? What do I do? Because we would practice before, like, here's how we handle this, blah, blah, blah. When a friend, she does a lot of modeling with, like, helping them write books for how we treat our friends, or how to handle, certain specific scenarios that she was struggling to handle. But I said, what about when it comes to a head, and they've been playing for 4 hours, and it's summertime, and they're tired, and then what do I do? So Rebecca went through this. She said, you have them, and they alternate. So sometimes it would be Bryn's turn, sometimes it would be Scarlett's turn to tell their side of the story, what happened. And the other one doesn't talk. You don't let them talk, and you listen to one. And as you're saying, oh, she said, I hate you. Oh, that must have hurt. That must have hurt your feelings. Oh, then she was, okay, well, I'm sorry. Now what do you have to say? Let them, oh, well, that must have been frustrating. Okay, I understand. Okay, so what I'm hearing, then they both finish, and you say, what I'm hearing is, you were hurt because she wasn't listening to the activity that you had planned, so then you said, I hate you, and then which made her feel really bad. And
The big thing is you were facilitating collaboration between
Yes.
the kids.
Oh, then I would say, so I would validate both their comments and I say, okay, how can we fix it?
Yep.
And I didn't say, you apologize to her or you do this. At the end, I would explain both sides and say, okay, now how can we fix that?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No, that's great. Yeah, I mean, you're facilitating that interaction. So both of the children get to be seen, they get to feel safe, and they get to feel secure. Because they both get a chance to tell their sides of the story. But then, at that point, we have to have some faith that our kids can figure out how to problem solve
Yep.
through this. So we do need to present it to them as, what do you guys think? What should we do? And if they're stuck, then we can facilitate some potential solutions and present those as options.
Without putting
But
words
without
in their mouth.
saying, you have to do it this way. And so
Yes.
we talked a lot about it being adult imposed, right? A lot of the times when we try to have conflict resolution for children, we impose what we believe should happen.
Which has
to
been
resolve
hard
it.
for me to stop doing.
Yeah, because we want to get in there and fix it and move on.
Well, we want to say, you don't say hate.
Yeah.
You said you hated her? You know you're not, you want to do that, but it doesn't do anything. It doesn't teach them anything in that moment. You just now turned them off to continuing to fix and resolve. The camera keeps dying, so we keep having to recharge, and we just keep chit-chatting in between. Anyways,
We love it, though.
let's go through the bullets for empathetic listening and how to help your child feel safe, seen,
Secure.
secure,
So,
seen,
Safe,
secure.
seen, secure. So first, reflective statements with that clarifying statement. So reflective statements being, I heard you say this. The clarifying statement is, you are feeling this. And then that way the child can respond.
No, I'm not feeling this, or yes, that's what I'm feeling.
Exactly. And again, we're talking in terms of an age level that can handle that type of emotional development. So you're looking at 4 years old on up.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the bigger ones.
Okay, so that's one thing we can do, and then just make sure in these conversations that you're helping them feel seen, safe, and secure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? Let's segue into what if your child doesn't. We got a lot of this. What if your child doesn't open up? What if you have a highly emotional child, but when you ask what happened, how was your day? It seems like it might have been difficult, and they shrug or say I don't know, and they just struggle to open up and let you in to understanding them and what they're going through.
Yeah, and that's a big
Which is something
thing.
I don't know at all, because Scarlett tells
She opens the world up.
Right, but I could have another child like that, so what do I do?
Yeah, so I mean that's a loaded question in a lot of ways. What I always tell families is shift the lens. So don't ask the questions, just reflect on what you're seeing out of that child. I see your face looks like this. I see your head is down. I see your eyes are down. That tells me that you are sad. I am here if you want to talk about it. And then give them time and space. Allow them to know that they were seen, that they are safe, and that they are secure. And then come back and loop back to it.
And when you loop back, do you do the same thing?
No, at that point, because usually their actual physical state has changed.
Okay.
But then you can say, is there anything that you would like to talk to me about?
What if they keep pushing back and just say no, but you know something's wrong? I know. How many times have you heard the mom say, I had no idea my child was dealing with suicidal thoughts until it was too late? Like how do you get them to crack open a little bit and help them?
So there's this really cool resource there's a thing called the CPS model, the Collaborative Proactive Solutions. We've done a lot of that with the empathetic listening with Scarlett. So the CPS model you can find on livesinthebalance.org. It's made by Dr. Ross Green. And he has this really cool sheet called the drilling cheat sheet. And in that drilling cheat sheet, you can go step by step to start to peel back the layers to get your child to open up. Because a lot of the times when a child does shut down with the I don't know, they're either worried that they're going to get in trouble or they're worried that you don't understand truly how they feel, right?
Okay.
And it's not about understanding how they feel. And so the message has to get across that I don't need to necessarily understand how you're feeling. I just need you to know that I'm here for you to talk about. And so I always reference families over to that website to practice the different drilling strategies to peel back those layers.
Say that again real quick.
Livesinthebalance.org.
Livesinthebalance.
Dr. Ross Green.
Okay.
And check out the drilling cheat sheet.
Okay.
He has all of the paperwork for free.
Oh,
yeah.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, that's something I don't know a lot about. What are the bullets, really quickly, for that topic, for a child that doesn't open up?
So, do the reflective listening.
Change the lens.
Change the lens. Yep. Reflectively listen and open up the discussion for describing how they're looking in that moment. And then invite them to either discuss it with you now or table it. So take a few minutes, come back to it. If you need to drill further, then get on the CPS website, the Collaborative Proactive Solutions website by Dr. Ross Green. Check out his drilling cheat sheet and kind of work your way through those different processes.
Okay. A lot of people ask, is there a connection between reactive behavior and ADHD or anxiety? And the answer is...
Yeah, I mean, those are just part of the subsymptoms a lot of the times. Not every child's going to have those, but with just those diagnoses in general, they do lend to more social emotional deficits, and so you do end up having some more reactivity. But not every child that is highly reactive is a child that has a diagnosis or needs to seek a diagnosis.
Right.
So there's usually much more pervasive delays
Don't
that
go
would cause
running
those
to a
diagnoses.
doctor. And I kind of got that vibe from a few people who asked, which is, I think when we see a continuous behavior in our kids, we want a solution, we want an answer, even if it's a hard answer sometimes, just to have an answer. But I didn't want Scarlett to have a diagnosis. I didn't want, not that that's a terrible thing. Hello, I have a child with a diagnosis and it's wonderful. But I didn't want to have to put her on any medication. I didn't want to have to go down that road if we didn't need to. I was prepared to, so we did test. And she was teetering, right? She teetered a little bit with ADHD and anxiety, but I feel like it's something that we can manage with some of these tools. And we've been very proactive about it. And so hopefully we're kind of getting a hold on it without ever needing to go that route. And I don't think it was severe enough to where we would need to go that route. But should you have a child that has these behaviors, don't think you need to run and get a doctor's note for them. Right?
Yeah. I think it's important that you also understand that a diagnosis doesn't change the fact that they have these behaviors. And so it's not going to change the course of treatment for them. I mean, we're not talking about incredibly complex diagnoses here, you guys. We're not talking about like schizophrenia or things like that. We're talking about things like ADHD or things that do fall under those behavioral pieces. And so it is important that understanding is there. It's not that diagnosis, that label isn't going to change what you're doing with your child when you seek additional help.
Should your child have severe behaviors? Yeah, go talk to a doctor.
Yeah, and go see a developmental pediatrician. Go see a licensed psychologist. Yeah.
Right. If it is enough of a stress on you and your family, then that's probably.
And if behaviors aren't changing with the strategies that you are doing, then definitely probably seek somebody else out. And
it's okay to need that help.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. So yes, there's a correlation. But like me, you can just have a highly reactive and emotional child, and that's okay too. And
there's a really cool book that actually talks about highly sensitive children. I talked to you about this at one point.
Yeah, I'm bad at reading parenting books.
No.
I fall asleep trying.
Everything's on Audible, you guys.
I fall asleep listening. I just am bad at that.
But it's kind of cool because highly sensitive children it's a temperament, not a developmental issue.
Yeah.
And so that's really kind of satisfying as a parent to know that this is temperament.
Yes. Okay, so bullets for, I guess, do we even need bullets for that? The answer is yes. There can be a correlation. Does it mean one way or the other? No. Let's move on to, this is my favorite one to talk to people about because this was kind of like a giant light bulb turned on once we realized a lot of Scarlett's difficulties with some of her behavioral, some of her behaviors ended up being transitions. She did not like transitions. She's become a much more adaptable child, but she didn't like it when we had afternoon kindergarten. So here where we live, you don't have full day kindergarten. It's like 3 hours, and you can have morning or afternoon. And she had afternoon. And if I switched up a routine, like if I said, "Hey, you just woke up, but we're gonna run to Target and we'll get breakfast when we get back," or 'cause she's never hungry in the morning. Or if I just threw plans at her without really preparing her, every time, big old breakdown. Or if I said, "Hey, you know how we were going to do this today? Well, instead we're going to do this activity today." Even if it was like one she may even enjoy more, it was like this anxiousness, this like, and and she actually has come really far. Now it's not as big of an issue, but it was at 4, 5, and 6 years old. Let me show you some of the things.
She likes her predictability, and you'll find with most kids they do like a predictability in their schedule. It doesn't mean that the schedule can't switch around,
right?
But for the majority of it, they need to see that they have that predictability because it makes them feel safe and it makes them feel secure.
Yeah. So what Rebecca did for her is my day, and we would
so fancy.
Yes, so fancy. And we would have 4 spots for her to put things on. So the next 4 activities were all laid out. We had some blank ones that we colored things on, but they were like homework, So it would be get dressed, read, do your chores in the morning, maybe, and it would be, go to school. Then when she'd come home from school, I would have the next 4, and I would let her take them down when they were finished. This chart worked really well for her for a while. Yeah. And then sometimes it would be, okay, so say when she gets home, it was really good for her to see that, say it was chores when she gets home, and then
her friend time.
Then her friend time, and then family home evening, and then we even have work with Rebecca on here, which is like friend time. But so she would see, okay, she took too long to do her chores. That meant we had to take down friend time, and that physical, that visual for her to have to take that away. It still caused a meltdown, but it was less of a meltdown because she realized, well, I didn't do that. That was my bad. You're not letting me do this. So that helped for that,
Yeah. And just that visual process of her being able to help build her schedule, have ownership over her schedule.
I would let her be the one to put them up as much as possible, so she felt like she had the control. Yeah. So what did we call this?
I think we just called it her schedule, didn't we?
Yeah, just her schedule, and that was really helpful for a long time.
Yeah, and all of those, you guys, you can find those pictures online for free. So you can actually Google PECS, P-E-C-S, pictures, and find those little icons on various websites that you can put on your visual schedule. So if you don't want to have to take pictures of your kids doing the actions or whatever,
no, this is easy. I'm looking, there's a ton of them. Movie night, birthday party, breakfast, meditation time. We wrote like my parents when they come to visit. So time with Nana and Papa, music practice. Anyways, music class, gymnastics, all the different activities. You can print them all off, and have them in charge of helping plan out their day, so they can feel like they have a little control, which for Scarlett is a big thing. She likes to feel in control, and when she feels like she's not in control at all, it's really hard for her. So bullets for transitions, kids who struggle with transitions, go.
So create predictability, give them a visual schedule, and Google PECS pictures to put that schedule together.
Yeah. Okay. Another thing that we talked about a lot is, you just got to, as a parent, know when you need to slow down and let your kids have time for transitions. And that's something that's really hard for me. Rebecca knows I'm a mom on the go. I'm not a homebody. I like to be spontaneous. But when you have a child like Scarlett, you have to be more conscious and aware of what you're emotionally kind of putting them through, and just try to give them a little bit more warning and time to transition. I now wake Scarlett up a little over an hour before carpool comes together, even though all she has to do is change, eat, and do 10 minutes of piano practice. Yeah. Because I know she's slow moving and she likes her time to do things. She doesn't like to be rushed in quick transitions. She likes to ease into her transitions. So being aware, giving them a little bit of extra wiggle room is also huge for kids that have those heightened emotions and anxieties about daily transitions.
And again, us remaining calm, right? If they're a little late to call or edit.
It's getting late.
It's getting late. If they're a little late to carpool by a minute or two, it's gonna be okay. Right?
Yeah, which has been a hard one for me. I still struggle with this, but yeah, just being okay with, you know, not looking perfect like the perfect mom to other people, but being a better mom for that kid is way more important. That's not so much hard for me. It's just the patience of it all.
Well, and if we're rushing those things for them, we're rushing their child development. And so we're not giving them the chance to grow, and we're not giving them the chance to learn how to manage themselves in an appropriate manner.
Right. They need time to process all the things. Our world is so fast moving. They need time to be a kid and to process it all. And when we're pushing them to move from thing to thing so fast, and I have a chronically slow moving child. Everything takes a long time, and now
she's like a sloth sometimes.
Yes, and I'm aware, and so I give her a little extra time. And there's days where I do just have to rush her, and I know it's going to be a harder morning or whatever, but I try. I'm at least conscious of it. I know it's an issue, and we try to work on that. Okay, so we already went over the bullets and then got on a good tangent. Now, while we were talking about that, it reminded me, because I saw this 3 bags full card, and this we came up with because Scarlett needs constant interaction. She doesn't like a lot of alone time. She wants to constantly be entertained, and that is hard for a mom who has 2 other children, specifically one who has some different needs. And it really, I think, hit me over the summer, or actually maybe it was when she was in kindergarten, and I had these mornings that were really long where she was needing all of my focus, and I just literally couldn't give it to her because I have 2 other kids. And luckily, she's never taken it out on the boys that they require so much, but she would take it out on me, and she'd be really mad. So Rebecca came up with the 3 bags full, which was 3 tote bags, and I would fill them with different activities. So one I stuffed stickers and paper and markers and crayons in, and that was like her art tote. Another one, I got these paper dolls, and she could play with her paper dolls tote. And then the third one, I switched them out, but the third one would be like...
You had books at one point, and some of dollar store type of craft and artsy things.
She likes crafts, so we did a lot of... But anyways, in that moment when I would say, Scarlett, I just don't have time to do that with you right this moment. I wish I did, but I don't, so why don't you go grab a tote, and you go grab a tote for 30 minutes and play with that. And I set the timer for her, and she could see how much time she had to do her tote, and that was really helpful for both of us, because it was a fun thing for her, and it gave me that breather. And then once the tote bags kind of were off, we moved on to this chart, which is, where are all of these?
I think they fell on the floor. We were looking to create more self-direction for her.
Yeah.
And that way she's not constantly
when she's
coming
bored,
in
and I hate hearing I'm bored when you have all the things. Anyways, it just drove me nuts. So this was like it wasn't meant to be a punishment or something that's not fun. It's fun things, but she kind of knew, okay, when I'd say, Scarlett, you got to go pick your stations. So she would take from these, there was a bunch of options, things that she could do. Imagination station. And I'd say, you have to pick 3, put them on your board, and each one you got to spend 30 minutes doing, or 20 minutes, or whatever that was. And by the way, I should have brought it down, but we have one of these timers that actually shows the red, and it shows it going down.
It's called a time timer, and you can get it on Amazon. And they've got a cute one that you can actually, you guys have it, put on your refrigerator.
We have 2. We have one there and then one in her room.
Yeah.
So she knows. That helps with everything. Nap time, playtime.
Good for transitions.
It's great for kids that struggle with transitions. So she would have to choose 3 things, and it was kind of like, honey, I can't do that with you right now. Go pick 3 stations to do, and then after 3 stations, come check back. And so that kind of gave me like an hour usually. She'd spend 20 minutes at each one. Sometimes they only lasted 5 minutes each or 10 minutes, depending on what we had next in the day. But she could do a creativity station, which would involve like her tote bag or going to the craft. I hate crafts, but we have a
craft bin
cabinet with bins in it. Anyways, she loves that stuff, and makes a huge mess doing it. And then this is your choice. So she could feel creative coming up with her own, or a movement station, which would be down in the sensory room, or out on the trampoline, or whatever. You can get as creative as you want with it. And anyways, that was really helpful for a child that struggles with transition as well. We're going to wrap it up, but we'll do this again. And if you guys want to know more, I want to talk more about like incentives. So we want to talk about some more things if you guys are interested. Well, I do. Can you? Will you?
Yeah.
If I charge my camera better, will you?
I think it'd be fun to even talk about like where the progress has gone and how deep we're getting into the work we're doing with her now, like the letter that she and I wrote tonight.
We'll get into that on next time for sure, if we can get another one of these on the books. But why don't you tell people where to find you if they want to find you?
So I am new to social media. I am no Oakley Peterson.
I've been trying to get her on for a while.
Yes. So my Instagram handle is Barefoot Babbitt, and
if you go to my followers and take that in, okay.
Yeah.
Or who I follow.
Yes. And then I'm on Facebook under Hope Interventions is the name of my company, and I do phone consults, so we can talk about that if you guys are interested in more strategies and ideas for your kids.
And I will say one of my favorite things is how quickly you can talk to her about your kids, or she who hadn't seen Scarlett in like 3 years came in and within a half hour of playing with her knew exactly what we were struggling with. So anyways, you're good at that. You're good at keeping
she's
people
nice. Thank you.
And you could do maybe a FaceTime one or something.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do video chats. We can do Zoom.
If
we
you're
can do
interested,
a lot of different things. Yeah.
That would be a good way to do it, because I'm just shocked at how much interest talking about this is, because we all have that kid that we just don't really know, we don't feel quite equipped for, and I think that, getting that help is incredible.
And I'm also a mom of those kids, so that adds nicely to it. I have 3 girls, and 2 of them have exceptionalities and special needs. So
Anyways, love you guys. Thanks for watching, and comment or let us know what else you'd like to know so we can do this again.
Yay!
Good night.